Hey guys and girls, just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about Buzzsprout. Start a podcast today with free podcast hosting for Buzzsprout, easy podcasting software for hosting, promoting, and tracking your podcast. Buzzsprout is the best way to publish a podcast online for secure and reliable hosting to full iTunes support. Get started for free, no credit card required, cancel at any time.
Stands for losers.
That's why we took the damn field. Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
This is what's great about sports. This is what the greatest thing about sports is.
You play to win the game.
Welcome to the Airin podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Airing It Out podcast. I am Dustin, your host as always. I am blessed and honored to have Kristen K10 in the building. How are you doing, young lady?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I know that the fires kind of moved you around and stuff. How are you doing? How's your home and all that stuff handling? How are you handling all that stuff?
Well, I'm finally back in my residence. The winds died down luckily just in time that it didn't do anything to at least my neighborhood in the area. So it looks like things have died down quite a bit, and people are getting back in their homes. And it's funny because there's people in my neighborhood that decided to stay back. A bunch of guys like in the area supposedly were patrolling just to keep looters away. So
that's always nice. The neighborhood watch. That's cool.
Yeah. I think they're excited. You know how guys are.
Yeah, no kidding. Look at all the riots. There's usually a lot of guys all amped up to get some stuff done. But at least that was nice. I mean, I could only imagine. I have a lot of friends up and down the Western Seaboard, and between air quality and ash falling from the sky, and your homes being threatened to be on fire. Another thing to add to 2020.
Yeah. Oh, God. And it's just like I was telling people the week before, I was saying how I'm like, I think 2020 is dying down. And those are the words that summon 2020 to come after you.
I've been in the restaurant industry for quite some time, and some time until I segue to this. And I always used to tell people, don't put your feeling out there. So if you're like, I can't wait to leave early, that's exactly when you're not leaving early. If you're trying to plan for an easy day, that's definitely when they send something your way for you to handle. I think I heard someone once told me, when you ask if you're a religious person, God provide me the patience. That's exactly when he's going to test your patience to see how much of it that you have. So I guess practicing it is more valuable than actually wishing for something not to happen.
Yeah, you got to be careful what you say out loud. I mean, I haven't said other things like, "Oh, I'm so thankful I have my life." I'm not gonna die. There's just too much of that right now.
I know it's really alarming. The state of where we're at with so many different things. I think that a lot of people should be super excited that at least all the limbs are working, all the organs are functioning, and you can breathe in and out and wake up every day. I think a few people don't think about those things often enough, and that's probably why we're in some of the positions that we're in.
Yeah, I think we take for granted, definitely. Like, I think just how easy life is until we hit hardship. I think I even put out a tweet to Elon, like, I think it was like earlier this year, and it was a funny meme. It was about how when you get a cold and your nose is stuffed up, all of a sudden your world just unravels from a stuffy nose because you can't breathe. Like,
I know.
It seems like, seriously.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm always like, they come in threes. So as soon as one thing happens, a few more are bound to follow.
Yeah, so true.
So speaking of Elon, I follow you pretty decently on Twitter. It's always awesome to see some of the tweets you have. I feel like they're fun and engaging, and also they provide knowledge and some insight. And I think on one of the tweets you had mentioned that, I don't know if the word hero was what you used to describe him, but how he's been really influential in your life. Can you describe to me a little bit about that and what makes Elon a prominent positive figure in your life?
Yeah, I think when you're just looking out there with people who are bringing change in this day and age, and who actually execute and follow through with their care in their heart, you see Elon, and he's doing things that other people aren't doing on a philanthropic, like a huge degree, and it's amazing to watch him do. And he's bringing up new technologies that haven't been used ever, and I don't know, he's inspiring. And his story about being bullied as a child, or having naysayers about the people he looks up to, and still continuing on that path. It's hugely inspiring, I think, for all of us. We all deal with that to some degree, and it just helps us realize. I mean, you could be the richest person in the world, you could be one of the smartest people in the world, and look at the amount of hate and craziness he still gets. I mean, people just don't believe him, and you're just like, this is crazy. So it kind of gives a perspective of reality. Just like, I mean, we have to believe in ourselves, and we have to believe in our dreams and what we're doing, and he does it so well. So he's a great guy, great person.
Yeah, that's really impactful because I think that a lot of people have a tendency of listening to the naysayers, and you might have these amazing ideas, but again, if you don't believe in yourself, and sometimes if you don't have your inner circle believing in you, you have a tendency of putting things to the side. And it's a shame how many things die within
Yeah.
people, because we could probably have 20 million
Hmm.
Elon Musk, but what makes Elon is the perseverance to go through that negativity and to all that stuff and to persevere, and then just speak out, like we were just saying, speak out these crazy things into the universe, and going out and making them happen, even if they don't exist, even if the technology is not there. There's a will and there's a way. And I found it more fascinating that we thought Bill Gates and Steve Jobs were these great iconic minds of our
Hmm.
time, and Elon, in my opinion, has just blown these guys away.
Yeah. I mean, the his vision is so big. It's, I mean, universal. He's exploring and he's changing things further than just the U.S., further than the Earth. He's reaching for Mars and other planets completely. Yeah, it's amazing. I agree.
Yeah, one of the things, because I was, trying to do a lot of prep because I was listening to to give a shout out to the Third Row podcast, and to Elon and all this stuff, and it was a lot of science, and at times I was trying to get overwhelmed preparing for this. But one of the things that I found that he was really dialed in on was making things easier and cheaper to produce more and faster, which I don't think a lot of people think about that, especially when we were just talking about Steve Jobs, and not that he's with us anymore, God bless him, but that his products, I don't know if they're into designing cheaper iPhones, right, or faster producing iPhones, but this man takes this amazing sports car and now wants to make a sedan, and then wants to make the family vehicle version, and then wants to make the communal version of it, and just keeping on. I think it was the interview that you had him and one of the automotive specialists. It could have been episode 14 or
Yeah.
15 on the Third Row podcast, and I was just like, man, this guy just understands stuff on the basic levels of principles and then adapts them.
Yeah. No, seriously. Yeah, you're exactly right. I think you hit it right on the head. It is what he does. He's efficient. I mean, he's highly efficient, and he's not just shrewd, and he's not cheap. He's thrifty in what he does. He finds the materials that work at the same quality that everyone has kind of put aside and ignored it, and he buys them in mass scale and uses them. I mean, look at the Cybertruck and the Starship. That the steel that he's going to be using, the 301.
I mean,
Yeah.
what I also find interesting about listening to him, it's almost like, I mean, the word genius gets thrown around a lot, but I just had an interview with a friend of mine who's an auto mechanic enthusiast, and he said it really easy. Engineers are people who solve problems. When he's talking about in that
Mhm.
specific episode, how he kind of figured out that if you can make a model die cast car, then why couldn't that be expanded and looked into further? It's just like, man, he sees things as such an interesting point of view that I think we miss
Yeah.
so much, and the paying attention to detail is, I think, something that a lot of people miss.
Yeah. No, I know. He has, yeah, that engineering mind that takes something on micro scale, which often you see in nature, and repetitively creates it on a macro scale. Even though the die cast is something made by humans, he's like, why can't you just make the machine that's larger? You're totally right. It's so cool, like, to think about. He doesn't take no. He just does it. Like when he started the Boring Company, what did he say? He was at SpaceX. He's like, just go dig a hole to his engineer. And they just go in the parking lot and start digging a hole.
Yeah, in his bio is so crazy. So, most of us hope we have like one good idea, right? And so he comes up, and
Yeah.
I didn't really like dig into it a lot, but let's say he was the only guy in the building with PayPal, right? Has all this stuff, cashes out. You would think you want to go hit the Bahamas, set up a bar on the beach, and you're
Yeah.
done, right? He doubles down that
Yeah.
into SpaceX, ends up being homeless, living on couches, having, I think it was 8 or 9 rocket explosions, and still sticking with it. And
Yes.
then adding your story about him just saying, "Hey, go dig that hole. We could get this done." Just having like almost a ignorance about failure is insane.
Yeah. Yeah, it is insane. It's so encouraging though, because he's got this sporadic excitement that you're like, I think he would be very exciting to work for if you were one of his top engineers. I don't know. It would be very stressful too because you got to execute. But if he's in the brainstorming team, that would be super fun just because he's got such fun, creative ideas. And he gives you and he probably gives you, the means to get it done too. So I don't know.
One of the things that I really liked about him, because when he was doing the showcase for the Neuralink, and he began to speak, he began it and ended with, "Hey, if you're smart, forget about your degrees. If you can see things differently, if you're an outside of the box thinker, apply, come down." So when you're talking
Yeah.
about the possibilities of working for him, it almost seems tangible because it's not like you need these massive PhDs and you don't need to be truly world recognized in your intelligence, but if you have initiative and motive and you can problem solve, he seems like he's open in open arms, just in inviting people to come in and challenging them. So I could almost it must be an amazing workspace to be around him and to just learn from him on how he processes.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think there's a lot of people who have that head knowledge, and then there's the field knowledge, and the two of them meet. And I think Elon, like what was one of his quotes at the Starship, the grand opening or breaking or whatever, the event that happened down in Boca when they had everyone come out for the Starship when it was sitting up, was Tide is right. And what he means is, like, if it's a long process to get there and you're not getting anything accomplished, why even do it? Like, you need to make sure that within the certain window it's executed. And I think that kind of goes along with the lines of the way he's hiring people. I mean, people could go with their PhD and be blue in the face, write tons of research papers, but if nothing's being ever utilized by those research papers or executed, it's not really going anywhere. And I think you prefer to see people actually, I mean, like an engineer thinking, execute some physical things happening. So I like it.
Yeah, no, I think,
He's always changing it up.
I mean, for real, this guy, like I said, I don't think that, there's anybody around him. I mean, without the Iron Man suit, he's technically the, Tony Stark of our generation. That there, when it comes to getting something built, we think in a suit of iron would challenge people. But this man is doing rockets and underground subway, tracks to get people to places faster, and with Neuralink and all these other things. I wanted to ask you, I don't know if you're a big sci-fi fan, but a lot of his stuff seems to come from some of those visions. Do you think in his mind, if you had to be in it for a second, is it life imitating art? Because some of this stuff that we've seen in films now is actually coming
Mm.
to fruition.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like the simulation is impressing you and you're impressing the simulation, because there's a feedback loop where it's like you're playing off these ideas. Kind of like even in Star Trek where they say the tricorder, like the medical tricorder has come into existence now. Yeah, definitely. I mean, he was reading a lot of Asimov, and Asimov has like tons of information on sci-fi that you could read, and he impressed a lot of different people with his writings. And then you've got Ian Banks, the Ready Player One. Is that right? No, that's not right. I can't remember the name of the title of the book right now. But
I think you might
Ian
be right
Banks
because it
book
was that
that he liked.
film Ready Player One. You might be right about that. I'm not 100% sure, but you might be.
Yeah, yeah, my mind, yeah, things are. But anyways, yeah, like he's definitely read a lot and it's impressed him. But I mean, that's kind of how you build on the creative ideas. When you see somebody who has an idea, it kind of sparks something else.
It's a little scary. I mean, and to jump into that, he said the future is scary or is going to be scary, especially with Neuralink jumping in there. It seems to scare me a little bit. Did you get a chance to be at that conference? Because I know you was on Twitter taking photos. I didn't know if you were in the building that
Oh
day or
man,
not.
I wasn't in the building. I was actually. I mean, let me think about this. I believe I was down in Phoenix for the Nikola stuff going on, but I did watch the Neuralink, and maybe that is that right? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, no, most of the people who got invited are people like Lex Friedman from MIT and some higher up scientists or people that are really high into the field. But that would be really cool to be there in person. But I did watch it, and it was fascinating. Just the fact that blindness, paralysis, deafness, just to being able to use like Bluetooth like technology to deal with short circuit wiring problems of the human body is just a mind blow.
It's really, really, really scary and exciting. I mean, I'm so stoked for those individuals that are suffering from not being able to walk or paraplegic, and all of a sudden, this gent is able to potentially put something that can cure that. I mean, when you've never seen, if you were a child born with blindness and all of a sudden maybe 20, 30 years you can see, or you never been able to walk, or you was in this massive crazy accident, and you're having problems. And I mean, I was listening to your interview with Warren Redditch, and it was just like even Alzheimer's and a lot of these different things, these ailments, I'm not going to say are going to disappear, but they're going to be less of them. And that's really, really, really exciting to see, excuse the pun, but for where we're going to go with that, and how his vision for that is, and how it's evolved from kind of like an ear aid kind of deal to something that's so small, almost the size of maybe a big battery watch, that's going to be implanted
Right.
into your skull and give you just all this access. And he called it, it's kind of like a Fitbit with a slash of like a little bit of a smartphone. Bluetooth in your head just is mind blowing to me.
It is mind blowing. And I think there's so much, people are like, this is what it can do to help the short circuiting. But I mean, there's so much more we can think about it. Like, it'll be able to, at some point, be able to see what the healthy rhythms and the layout of a mind will be. And I mean, there'll be some genetic disorders that won't be easy because the mind is laid out according to the way the genes tell it to lay out. But I mean, it will be able to, like with Alzheimer's, probably to see where it is and how to deal with all that at some point. I mean, there's so much more. We're just on the cusp of it, and this is rudimentary. That's the crazy thing. Like when we look back at, remember the cell phones in like the 90s, like in movies, they're like huge bricks. And now we've got these cell phones that could be as teeny as iPods if we really wanted them to, but we'd probably lose them, or you know, and they're just not convenient for our big thumbs. But I mean, this is just the first stages of what Neuralink is. Like, it's going to be wild to see, what vision or version 5.0 is going to be, or I don't know, or even just the regular human who wants to get Neuralink, and not just the person who needs to walk or something. So
Well, if you put your reference, into this current discussion, you basically went from a phone that you looked like you were calling an airstrike, right? And then now, with your iWatch, if you pay for the service, you don't even need to bring your phone. So technically, a phone is like the size of a bigger size quarter, and you can take it with you
yeah,
everywhere. To see how far they've come in such a short time is insane. And I think he was on Rogan saying that it's about a year out of human testing. I was happy to see with the three piglet demonstration how in and out it was still healthy. Also with the other two that it was in, that it was responsive, and it was calculating all these things. I thought it was really interesting that they had that huge machine. So not only are you building it, you're also building the stuff to build it, which is insane,
yeah,
right? Like he's also figuring out, okay, I got to make this, but since it doesn't exist, I also have to make the parts to make it as well.
yeah, yeah. And that machine is a crazy thing. I don't know if you ever saw Galley, when Galley hyper changed, when he was able to go and do the tour of the Gigafactory in Reno, and he was able to see the batteries in the machine that puts it connects to the anodes, the wires that read the batteries within the whole cell pack, so it can see where they're at. The machine was very similar to the Neuralink machine, and Galley had brushed up on that and stated that. And so it's really interesting to see just the cross use of technologies, how they kind of build on each other, and how Elon uses the different engineers within the different fields to like still. I mean, they use the Tesla batteries for different parts of SpaceX, and they. It's just these engineers that have this creativity that they can use the different endeavors or the projects they're working on to use. But the Neuralink, yeah, that machine is wild, and the speed at which he said it would implant in your head is just like, you can go slower if you really want to. Like,
I mean,
that would be,
when he's saying that it's going to be an outpatient procedure, sounds nuts, right? Like
yeah,
it'll be done in a few
yeah,
hours, and you can leave the building. You'll be fine. Everything's going to be good. Don't worry about it.
right, right, right.
Speaking of batteries, I mean, before we put that conversation in bed, it really is interesting to me on how they're able to like basically cross train other departments. It's like, okay, so we nailed this, so now we can use this in many other ways. So basically, nothing's wasted, which is insane,
Yeah,
right? Like they didn't
yeah,
build something and then like, well, there's no more use for that. It's just a big paperweight. They just figure out some of the things that it was really good at, and now they'll build something else. Um, it's really great that at the speed not only that he's building, but at the speed that he's using other things to kind of incorporate into all of the different ventures that he's doing. Speaking about batteries, I seen that you again on Twitter at K10 posted this new patent that was released on 2020. Is that the new battery that they're going to be discussing for Battery Day, or if you can talk to me a little bit about that patent, if you can. I'm not sure,
Well,
because it
I
was
don't.
science, and I was kind of like, ah.
Yeah. So I found it because people post it. I mean, the amount of people. I've been on Twitter since like April 2018, back when the Flood War started, back when people were just figuring out who Elon was, and the amount of accounts that have just come on in this last year that are so fired up for anything Tesla is just a lot. So there's a lot of information now that's getting put out there. But the battery, someone had put out that battery patent information, and it was the metal and the non-metal through the different vehicle and how they connected. And so people are like, this is definitely going to be hit on at Battery Day, but there probably is a whole lot more to add to this, and there's a lot of speculation. So I don't know. You watch Elon just, like last night, reply to tweets, and I just feel like he's like dying to like tell us what's going on, and like it's like we're playing these hinting games. Or like, is it this Elon? He's like, no.
I know it's
It's
kind of cool that
yeah,
he really has natural engagement with the fan base, and kind of, I mean, I think that there was like a cryptic tweet that they were going to split the shares, and then another cryptic tweet about him potentially joining the S&P 500. And so now with
yeah,
these little things about what's going to be revealed next, and Neuralink and Battery Day. I mean, it's kind of cool. He definitely gets the teaser thing. He would have been really great in media putting together some of these things, because he really knows how to not only build it but also make you interested about it before it's even made.
yeah, yeah. He does. Seriously, he gets us all excited. He's so excited and he believes in it. And we're like, okay, well, if he says so, it's got to be good. And the S&P thing is hilarious. I mean, just like, I don't know if he's just trolling us all. Like, what
Right.
was
I
it?
don't know what happened there.
Snake
I was like, I was ready
snake
to
jazz
go.
Polynesian music. Everyone's like, what is that?
He's a trippy guy. I mean, I also heard on the Warren episode that you were doing, Gene Wilder's home and how he was, and I mean,
Yeah,
there's no better, I guess, interpretation of how playful he is when you buy a home that belonged to Gene Wilder and you didn't change a thing, right?
yeah, yeah. No, I know. I love that he loves character, and I think that's part of what people love about him is that he keeps to his own personal character, and he doesn't change himself for everybody. Like when he's on stage, everyone's like, well, he could be a little bit more professional in the way he speaks, and we're just like, really? So he can just like be every boring CEO who's like streamlined themselves to look like nothing? Like he appreciates good character, and he appreciates like very different personable character. Yeah, Gene Wilder's great, and that home was really fun. It was
Yeah,
really
no,
fun.
I could only imagine. I think he had mentioned it as well on Rogan, and just talked about different things. I think you had mentioned the couch and some of the paintings that were still in there, and what a trip. I mean, to be around him, it's amazing. If uh, I know you spoke about it a little bit on Warren's show, but for my audience, if you can just, I know you spoke about his kindness and his hospitality, but if there was something else that you noticed about him that you can share with us, we'd really be interested.
Oh well, let's see. He came in and he greeted us, and he's presently where he's at. He's all there. Like I mean, his mind probably is thinking about other things to some degree, but it's amazing how much he can be in the conversation and answer our questions without like being elsewhere to some degree, like frustrated or something. And he's always mulling over things. I feel like his mind is just a file going through different things when he's talking to us and answering our questions. And he's trying to give us the most direct response that makes sense. I mean, we had lunch with him and we went in the kitchen, and that was cool. Like he opened a cupboard and he was getting plates out, and like I held the cupboard door, and then like me and him were talking about like I'm like I love the character because I love the character of this kitchen, like how it hasn't changed. It's one of those old like 1950s, 60s, like you see where like they've hired maybe somebody to like help serve the kitchen while they're out in the dining and someone brings food out.
Right,
It's
while
so
they're
like
entertaining.
right. And he had stated, yeah, he liked the character, and it was Gene Wilder's home of Willy Wonka. Yeah, yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, and the fact that
I
he
mean,
fed us, that was just so nice.
no, that's amazing. It's interesting to think. You would think like somebody like that would potentially maybe be aloof, or not like witted, in the sense of like your social skills wouldn't be there. But from everything that I've read and talking to you now and listening to him the few handful of times that I have and having him on Rogan, he just seems to be so aware of everything and process
Yeah,
information at such like fast rate that it almost seems like it's a superpower. And to do all of that stuff, knowing
yeah,
that you're busy and you got other stuff, but to take the time and break bread with people, I think that's something really, really strong. I always refer to it in the Fast and Furious scene. It's important to eat with people. I don't know why
yeah,
that's a thing, but that commodity, the camaraderie and the community, it really is impactful. And for someone to be busy sending people off to space to still find time and cut time to impact individuals is something that I think is unprecedented.
yeah. Well, I mean, I completely agree with you. I mean, I think I posted a quote yesterday that he wasn't looking at how to make money. He was looking at what are the things that he could do that the world needs that would bring the best change, you know? And so he's not just looking at the earth as a solid rock by itself. He's looking at humanity and having a care for them. So whether or not he's spending his hours and time like living it up, like bonding with people compared to like actually doing what he feels is working with people side by side in the trenches, doing the hard work that a lot of us, the hours that he puts in, a lot of us, I mean, we couldn't function like that. I could sleep on a couch and do what he's doing and the stress levels and not snap at people. I mean, my gosh, like how does he not? I mean, I'm sure he has his moments. How could he not? But I mean, a lot of us would probably be extra snappy.
He seems like as cool as ice. Like the guy
Yeah,
doesn't flinch. It just very calm, very easy demeanor. I think I was watching some videos on YouTube because I was super excited about Tesla's growth from about $600 to $700 early mid Jan for it going to about 23 and then splitting. They were mentioning that he breaks his day into 5 minute intervals, and I just thought that that's crazy because usually when you hear about some of these motivational speakers and they're trying to cut down how you should work your day, they usually speak in hours. For this guy, I mean,
yeah,
there's a lot of 5 minutes in hours. So if you're breaking your day
yeah.
up in that, I can only imagine how much information he truly is processing on a daily level.
Yeah, that would be really wild. I think I tried doing 10 minutes at one time when I was doing calendaring, and it's not it's almost nerve-wracking, like neurotic, and I don't even know. He's flying. I mean, I don't know. There's an account that watches him fly. Someone had posted it, and I'm like, oh, I guess I'll watch it. And like the amount of flying he's doing around, it's just nuts. Like, how would you not wake up all the time going, where am I? What's sitting at my end? Like, I think I would feel very disoriented, but I mean, it is his norm, and so he's used to it. And I don't know what kind of mitochondria he has going on, but his cells are like energy workhorses, and he's not aging. I mean, look at his hair. No, great, Elon. What's going on?
I
Like
know
lucky
it's
you. Good.
insane. I'm trying to get up at 4 in the morning so I can do my work, spend time with my kids, find time for the missus, and do all this other stuff. And I'm wiped by, if I'm up by 4, I'm wiped by 8. And this guy is probably
Yeah,
getting the most juice out of life and looking vibrant and with it. I mean, he smoked weed and apparently didn't affect him. So the mitochondria of his cells must be on a whole nother level.
yeah. His energy and his ability to clean his cells out. Yeah, good team. That's good, and he's got a great mom and a great family too. So I mean, we met Kimbal when we were at the interview, and we did an interview later with May and Tuska, and they're all very wonderful people, very genuine, hardworking people.
That's interesting. I know this is going to be, I mean, he still has, the last name, but what was it like talking to Kimball?
It was good. A lot of people remark on that interview because he was sitting on his phone. I mean, we probably shouldn't have had a camera on him, but his priority was his sons and his nephews, and I don't blame him. It happened to be the Saturday, I guess, that he had just visited in town. Because I mean, if you want to see Elon, I'm sure you have to go to Elon. But Kimball is very nice. I mean, when we did our interview with Kimball, I mean, his passion is food, like you said, sitting down with people and caring. Like to feed people is a very caring, nurturing thing, and the bonding when you do sit and eat is very important. It brings people together. I mean, if people are famished, it doesn't matter what they're doing; they'll take food. They could be your enemy, and you could probably give them food. They'd be like, "Thank you." But that's Kimball's passion, and he loves it. And it was very fun to talk to him about different things because I love food too and health. That's kind of one of my other big things that I love. But yeah,
Because I'm a curious mind. Food is like something you offer your interrogational host, right? Like they use that because without it, there's something about it that just makes you kind of relax, and the endorphins, I'm sure, that are released is probably a little bit easier to talk to people and handle them. And I think that sometimes, not to pick genders, but for the most part, in my experience, if a woman's hasn't been fed, she's going to be a little bit more intense than she normally is. So you got to make sure she stays fed for the most part. And even I think with some guys, you get that low sugar count, and all of a sudden they're a little bit more irate. They're a little bit harder to talk to. And it's like, bro, listen, either have a sugar cube or take 10 minutes and eat a sandwich so we can get back to the real you. I think Snickers did like a whole big thing of, feed the hunger inside you or something like that. They were like crazy.
Yeah.
Snickers bar, boom, they're back.
Yeah, that's so true. I think I know more guys that get hangry, and I didn't know that was a
Really?
thing. I think it came into, yeah, like I think girls get a lot more like wilty and like whiny more, like when they fall apart and they're like complaining. But guys just get hangry. They kind of shut up and like hangry, like you're like, wait a second,
That's
you're
hilarious.
hangry.
I think that's
Yeah.
actually a really good a way to describe it, because I've seen some dudes hangry for sure. And I think most guys, because of all the testosterone, are just looking to get jacked about something. So if they're starving, it's like,
Yeah.
yo, bro, let's go. Versus
I need
maybe
to be appeased.
right, versus a young lady who might be a little bit more frazzled than normal because she didn't get her breakfast or her lunch in. um that's gonna be something I'm gonna be thinking about for the rest of the day. I know you said you joined Twitter in about 2018, and I don't know if I heard it or read it, but you kind of were going in there, didn't really understand the platform too well, but you went in all the way in, and you started, and you tell me if I was wrong about this, but started to kind of debunk some of the things that people were thinking about Musk and thinking about Tesla.
Yeah.
What seemed to come up the most about people getting wrong about not only the company but about him as well?
So starting with the company, just the batteries, the chemistry, and the cobalt. I mean, the cobalt was bad, and I think all of us starting to see the connections of big media, different newspaper outlets, and how they're connected to oil, and some of them how they're connected to big auto OEMs, and just seeing things and uncovering things and exposing things. There was a lot of that, and a lot of us were shocked. Elon was shocked. I mean, we'd present something to him in a tweet, and he'd be like, "Wow, that's interesting." We'd be like, "Right? Isn't that interesting?" And even May got on it. May Musk was on there, debunking a bunch of the different media outlets who were playing these games. I mean, Twitter or Tesla could have an amazing thing happen. They could win this amazing award, and then the next day, like 5 slams from the major like news media outlets or newspapers about something so petty, and you're just like, it's an intentional attack. And then as far as Elon, you probably know the Tesla Q, the people who are shorting Tesla have a lot of divested interest financially in it. And some of them I just think have divested egos that I don't know if they didn't do something right in life and it didn't pan out the way they wanted, but they want to see him as this kind of narcissistic, cold person who's out only for the money and he's going to take it and run, which is not like him at all. And I don't know if they're reading part of themselves into it, but it's crazy. Yeah. And, or that he's this reckless playboy. He's going to do some crazy stuff. I just don't know where they're getting this. Like, they find the smallest little thing, even like on the Joe Rogan thing. I think what Joe passed, and it was like a blunt, right?
Mhm.
Elon barely took any of it, and that was it. And like, oh my gosh, they came down with like, Elon's getting high every night. Like, this guy's reckless. Like, how can he run this company? Like, everyone's just like, you've got to be kidding. Like,
It's insane
the poor
because
guy
right
can't
now
breathe.
I'm on pins and needles because I thought about, so funny. Sometimes thoughts just come to you, and I'm sitting there and I'm in the market. I'm super excited. I think that was part of my invite. I'm like, hey, I'm a shareholder. Want to get a chance to talk to you, and I keep seeing, since it's split, the needle just going down and down and down, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to battle it in my head. I got to buy. I got to sell a little bit and come back so I don't get killed by the overwhelm. And the first thought that it spoke from the back was like, somebody's shorting this stock and somebody's making a killing
Mm.
on pushing this guy's value down. And it was just crazy. As soon as it split, every freaking story, from the fact that, he liquidated some of his assets. This guy doesn't obviously care about money. He just gave up his home. He's giving up all his worldly
Yeah.
possessions to be, for the people, but yet we continue to slam him. It's like anytime there's any kind of media, it gets sensationalized to a
Yeah.
whole nother level. I even think the whole Amber Heard thing was crazy about him coming over to Depp's house. I'm like, who cares? Why don't we let this guy do
Yeah.
what he's doing? I mean, there's obviously people who do less with more egregious things, and it just seems. And I don't know if it was like doubled down because we have COVID now, but it really seems like people just are clamming to hear some bad news at the media. You know, like there's nothing to watch. So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, what's the next bad story that we could sink our teeth into? And it's almost like an episode. You got to give me another one and another one and another one over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I thought it was gonna be a positive thing, I'm like, shucks, if you had 4 shares, now you got 20, you're doing fine, right? And not in the finest way, but you're giving an opportunity for some of the younger investors to come in, some of the millennials to come in, an opportunity. I mean, I was scared. I came in because I was nervous. I think I bought it about like 2000. And when I heard the
Yeah.
news, I was like, oh gosh, thank God, because there's only so many 2000s I have. I have a lot of
Yeah.
400s. And
Right.
it just seemed like it doesn't matter what this gentleman does, it just trash. And then the news comes out about him not being able, or the company not joining the S&P 500 and all this stuff.
No,
And it's like,
brother.
man, I can we do you understand what this man is doing? Why are we in his way so much? But it just seems like that's part of certain people's natures, and it's really interesting as you talk about it, because I've heard you talk about it with Warren, as well as how all these special interest groups are coming in because we're trying to move away from some of the older thoughts and some of the other ways we use fuel. That it's like, man,
Yeah.
does anybody want a good Earth? I mean, are we just trying to
Yeah.
trash this place? I know he's trying to take us to Mars, but we're gonna have to live here for a while until that happens.
Yeah. Well, that is part of his plan with Tesla. The amount of CO2 that cuts down for the more people that are driving around the Teslas. It's great. We're moving away from big oil because big oil has just become. I mean, what back in the day when they found it, it was liquid gold. That's what they said. And then Rockefeller and his whole kingdom, that his empire that he had built upon that. And I mean, even the medical community is, and the pharmaceutical community is all built on that. Back in the day, back in the like late 1800s, early 1900s, it was naturopathic medicine. I mean, pharmaceuticals still go to ethnobotanists to figure out what some kind of tribe has been using that seems to be been working, and they take that herb or whatever, that plant, and they break it apart and they make a synthetic version of it. Then they patent it, and the stuff that they're making it out of is based off the petroleum industry. And that's what Rockefeller was doing back in the day. He was giving medical schools money if they figure out how to make this into some kind of medical thing that they could use. And he was paying for that. And now we've flipped it all on its head. Now that's what we have is organic chemistry, and we use it all. And it's got its place, but man, oil runs the world, and it has for a long time. But we can't keep on polluting. The last 100 years, we've polluted this earth more than we have in the last like 5,000 years, and that's just astounding. When they go to the Mariana Trench and they find plastic bags in the deepest parts of the ocean, that's sad. I mean, you look at the little rivers and stuff that are like the estuaries that are going out into the ocean, and they see like tons of like garbage and things like toothpicks and things, are like cotton swabs, or like those, what are those, like things that people use as little, I don't know, like little pieces of plastic things for their teeth and stuff like that. And like the amount of plastic that we're using is ridiculous. We have to cut back. Yeah.
Yeah, we totally do. I mean, there's only so much time left until this stuff starts to turn against us, and I think that's you know uh, definitely a lot to do with whether you want to call it global warming or whatever everybody wants to agree on. I mean, obviously the planet's starting to get pissed off now, and we're having
Yeah.
issues that we didn't have before, and things aren't keeping because we want to mass produce so many things. I mean, I thought one of the more interesting storylines that I've heard, and it made me like really, really think, was like, the amount of fuel that we spend just on agriculture is crazy, and if we could cut down some of
Yeah.
that and maybe eat cleaner and eat better and maybe approach some of these, I don't want to call them organic farms just because everybody, that's such a buzzword, but some of these smaller deals, because when you have to produce so much, obviously you're going to be sending boats and things back and forth, and all that stuff runs,
Mhm.
on oil, and then it's just strange. I mean, I try to do my small part. I think I sent it to you in the outline where was
Mhm.
trying to buy a Prius, but even that, I wonder how you feel about it, but even the way they're building that is still sending harmful, things into the air, into the atmosphere. And I wanted to hear your opinion on what are some of the things that Tesla does to try to keep it as clean as possible.
Yeah. to keep it as clear. I want to cover that. I just want one thing I did want to say that you were
Sure,
talking about
please.
is there symbiosis is something that people need to embrace more, and I don't think we understand how much we're tied to everything we're part of. I mean, what is the saying like if you give a woman a home, like if you give a woman your heart, she'll make a home. All those kind of things, like that with the earth, like we got to look at the earth as something that we give and it gives back, and I don't think we do that enough. There's definitely a symbiosis. But as far as Tesla, keeping keeping it clean and how do they keep things not toxic? You're saying the production, is that what you're stating?
Yeah, that's the question that I was asking. Yes.
Um, um, so I mean, there's things like paint. I mean, that give off the fumes, and manufacturing in general has a small footprint. I think is what you're stating. Maybe you're talking about the lithium recycling of the batteries. I'm not quite sure what part you
Right.
find is toxic.
A combination of all, whether it's the lithium and recycling the batteries, whether it's some of the, the footprints that some of these manufacturers leave. I just feel like Tesla tries to do a better job at trying to
Yeah.
minimizing their overall footprint. And, you're obviously a little bit smarter and more eloquent than I. So if you can just put that in kind of your own words on how you've seen the company do it over the last few years.
I think from day one they've been doing it. I mean, their goal since the beginning has been to make less of a footprint on the earth, to take an industry that is making a huge footprint and making a problem, and to scale it way down because people are not going to stop driving cars. So he's changing out one for one that's so much better. And Tesla's batteries are 100% recyclable, and he's making cars that people desire, cars that are attractive. I mean, you don't have to be smart and you don't have to be thrifty and drive something that you feel like is not as attractive as you'd want it to be. So they're making these cars that are very sleek, that are going to compete with the BMW, the new BMW out of Germany, or some Porsche that everybody wants. I think Vincent from our third row podcast, I mean, he had Porsches before. He had a garage of Porsches, and he changed out his wife. I think it was her Cayenne for a Y, and he loves the Y. He wants to drive her Y now, but um, Tesla's hitting it right on the head. They're changing out. I mean, humans are not going to stop. It's like when they started making plastic water bottles, I thought it was the dumbest idea. I'm like, are we seriously going to start selling water in plastic water bottles? And that's Nestle, which is a huge corporation that's greedy in my opinion. I mean, the way they go around and steal water rights and do different things in there. I don't think people have the right to water, but anyways, plastic water bottles are nuts. Tesla holds itself accountable for all its goods that it puts in, and it's making less of a footprint. By it being there, it's cleaning things up. The industry and the things out there already are a mess. I'm surprised that oil companies are not held accountable. They're so powerful, and they have so many nations at their feet in the way that they do things that they call it as they want, and they're not held accountable. I'm like, what is it? You go to the store, you buy like a glass water bottle, and you still have to pay like the 5-10 cent recycling fee. I'm like, why in the world are oil companies not having to do any of this kind of crap? That's just. And they're like, well, they sell the oil to the plastic company. I'm like, someone needs to be slapped on the hand with some stuff with this. What Bernie Sanders keeps on going after Elon as if he's this demonic, horrible billionaire that's doing horrible things. I'm like, why isn't he going after the oil industries? Like
I agree. I
everybody wants to
retweeted.
benefit
I seen two separate tweets. I seen one agreeing with Bernie and one disagreeing with him, and I automatically retweeted the one disagreeing with him because I'm like, look, if there's anybody in the building, sorry I keep using that, but if there's anyone on this planet that cares and is trying to be innovative and trying to use something different, it's him. I mean, this guy literally he was gonna turn his factory to make ventilators, and then instead decided to buy them. I mean, I didn't see nobody else willing to do stuff like that. It just it's a shame, and it's weird because until you underline that, I find that interesting because Bernie is this guy that really goes hardcore against billionaires and people of wealth. But I feel like his argument is definitely flawed because if anybody who's trying to make a difference in the world, it's him. I don't see all these other big companies trying to cure blindness, trying to, leave less of a footprint, in the environment, trying to, send us to outer space, to find better life or, trying to make transportation easier or, even with self-driving vehicles, that might be a long bit of ways, but think about all the DUIs, people that have killed people under the influence that might not be an issue anymore. Some of the things in the sense of, I mean, how many cars? I mean, some people have 2 and 3 cars to a household. When it's 100% electric, it's a totally different ball game. they really have a bullseye on this guy, and not to see him in a
Yeah.
positive way.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. I mean, yeah, it's always like who's in whose pocket. That's what it always goes back down to. You're like, who's on your board? Who are you getting shares from? Like, it's so bad. What does that mean? It's like there's a bunch of kids sitting around a campfire, and there's like an old man sitting with them, and like the earth has gone through catastrophic events where everything is like doomsday, post doomsday, and he's sitting around the campfire, and he's like, but in the end, the shareholders got their money. Like, it's just like it's funny, but it's sad. It's like kind of like Valiant and like the price of medicine when people need medicine for diabetes, when people need medicine for AIDS, and they're like, oh, we're just gonna jack it up, like clear ridiculous, like you're gonna die still, like yeah, there's so much greed, and I am surprised that Bernie is going after him. Can you imagine having Bernie Sanders as a sibling? Like, can you imagine them being siblings, like Elon and Bernie, like as kids? And Bernie's like, you have too much talent and too many good ideas. Like,
That's what it
you
ends up
need to,
seeing like, right? It seems like coming
yeah,
from someone who didn't get like, keep all his hair or stay in good shape or was smarter. It definitely has a
yeah,
little bit of sibling rivalry to some of the stuff, because at the end of the day, we would like to pretend that this country is fully capitalist. I think that that idea is skewed a little bit, but we should all have the opportunity to try to make something. And sometimes out of Bernie's camp, it's like, well, we got to take this from these guys to give to the other guys. And I get that process too, but it almost seems counterproductive if you're not able to grow as big as you want, right? Like there's got to be a cap on you and a ceiling, right? You could only have 1 billion. You can't have more billions. And you see a lot of these people. I mean, even and I'm not at all times, a super fan of Amazon, but what he has done to change, the accessibility for so many people. I mean, imagine if we went through COVID without that. People would have been
yeah,
screwed. You wouldn't been able to get products and services and goods as easily and as quickly. And like I said, he makes a great product. He doesn't seem like an evil man. There's nothing about him that gives off that signal. He doesn't seem like you were saying in that cookie cutter, you know,
mhm,
style of businessman. The guy doesn't care what he wears or how he looks. He's just out there and he's excited and he's happy. And I think,
yeah,
a lot of CEOs should start to take, especially the bigger guys who've been around the block longer, should kind of try to follow his lead a little bit and just be themselves and not worry maybe all the time that you don't have the right speech or somebody's not writing something perfectly for you, and just be excited and be a kid and try to help people. I think that that's something that we're really starting to lose. Humanity versus humanity
mm,
is starting to dwindle. We should care about other people. We should be interested on how the planet's changing and some of these other things. And I mean, it's funny. I'm originally from the East Coast, and there's something about the East Coast that's a lot different than California. And I
mm,
think not only California, but also the West period, it's more progressive. They're trying to do things. And sometimes it seems like a little too much, but it's still a lot better than we were at, you know?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're not the first person to tell me that. I've heard that a few times that the East Coast and West Coast have that kind of, you know, staunch difference. Like you go to New York City, and once again, we're back to like the state of New York, like where all the old money, all the old top hats were at, and they had all these, and they're not just old money. They're called, God, there's a name for it. I can't remember, but I mean, they had these huge estates. A lot of them became wealthy, and a lot of them, I mean, we start looking at history. They came from wealthy European families that came to the U.S. the intention of having huge plots of land. I mean, we could get in so much talk about this, but Rockefeller's bedroom, that is New York City. That is like where he was at, the oil industry. So you see a lot of that control back there on the stock exchange, and that kind of orientation and back there. But you're right.
I know it's crazy because being there, that's all you've seen. Like, I've always felt like in California, you could rub elbows with someone who's of importance and maybe you can make a friend. That is never happening in New York City. You need like special access to get to special clubs, to special buildings, to special places. I mean, they charge membership at
Yeah.
some of these places. You're not just gonna stumble over, especially if you're at the right place at the right time, which I think is really important about success, is being available and being there. But it won't happen because a lot of this, I can't. I hope you find the word, but we've always known it as the old money, and that's what really runs the show there.
Yeah.
And it really seems to pretty much run the show in most of the states, and at times I'm happy that at least the Western Seaboard at least tries to combat that with some of these innovative thought processes and different things that we're trying to do to change things and make things easier, but also make things better, right? Because easier
Yeah.
doesn't always mean better.
true. Yeah, easier doesn't mean always. Yeah, that is true. Very true. Yeah, it it'd be good to. It is good to see the change in things. The West has brought out a lot lately. I mean, there's hope in the West. I mean, that's what people were moving west. They were taking their wagons and going west. They're just going over the border, going into the West. So, yeah, there's a lot of innovation happening there. We've got Steve Jobs, and I mean, Elon. We have so many big giants that have done so many cool things out of that area. Yeah, a lot of opportunity. People still want to come where there's a land of opportunity, and I don't mean to sound like bragging or arrogant in that way, but there is a lot of opportunity, and a lot of people don't find that. I mean, there's cultures that are so steeped in the way they are, people feel like they can't get out of the way things are in different countries, and they want to come here and shake all that down and find a new identity and be new. And you gotta like that. Everyone wants a fresh start. You need a new day. So
100%. I don't want us to get too much philosophical. I would love to get you again back on the show and we can break that down because you definitely seem like somebody that understands that, and I see that too. But I wanted to ask you while I have you for a little bit longer. So with hold on, I want to make sure that the Cybertruck. Have
yeah,
you seen it in person? Is it?
yes.
It's in production, correct? But it's not available yet for the average Joe or for someone that we can't buy it yet, right?
No, well, we can put a down payment for it.
Right.
You
Okay.
can reserve it. And I did that. I went to the Cybertruck unveiling. That's the first Tesla unveiling I've ever been to, and I was completely thrilled. I mean, it was hyped up. It was the Blade Runner stuff going on. He had
Wow.
the Sid Mead kind of art and vehicles there. When you were waiting outside before you went into the event, he had vehicles that were used in Blade Runner, like outside that we could look at.
Wow.
I just said I was going to dress in costume. I'm like, why don't you? Like, I think a few people did, but I was like hyping it up on Twitter. I'm like, why do you not make the most of this? This is just so exciting, like dress the part. So a bunch of us just decided to dress in costume. We had like these neon glowing like goggles
Nice.
that our friend Vincent had picked up. We like stood out, but that's it makes it fun. But when we saw the Cybertruck come out, nobody knew what it was going to look like, which is mind blowing because all these engineers and people have been working at it, and their lips were tightly sealed. Nobody leaked anything, and you just know people in the media, certain people have been looking to get pictures of it and parts of it, and his team is tight and trustworthy and loyal, and they didn't leak anything. But Cybertruck rolls out, and he's got the flames going, the smoke machine, and like it's so cool. And people are just like, wow, like look at that. Like it's not a regular truck. It's like this sci-fi kind of looking truck, and it was so cool looking. The steel on it and everything. He gave rides in it afterwards, and there was two different trucks that were on there, but he gave rides in one of it, and I luckily, there was room for me to get in for a ride, and I sat behind the driver's seat, and I did a whole write up on actually the Cybertruck itself after the event, but
Yeah, I read
Elon
a
had
little bit of your
stated it.
article. It was very,
Oh,
very
thank
interesting.
you.
You're welcome.
The medium one, yeah. But,
Hmm.
he stated it's big enough to fit Andre the Giant. So like the
Wow.
truck pulls around, and like the people that were opening and shutting the doors were employees, and they look like models. I'm like, gee, Elon just hires the most beautiful people inside and out. So like they open the doors, and these doors are these solid. I mean, if you've seen the door itself, it's a solid thick door, and they open the door, and I'm looking at, I'm like, this is a beast. Like this truck is like heavy duty beast, and you get into it, and you slide all the way back. I'm sitting behind the driver's side, and the window's like up here. I felt like a little kid. It was so big. I'm like, this thing is huge. Like this truck has the potential, and that's one of the things. Like general contractors are going to be eating up using this truck. I mean, because its potential to like power the tools and work on site and like do all that can do. I mean, when you run a gas generator, everybody around them is like, oh my gosh, like the exhaust is stinky and like you hate it, like it's really bad. But this truck is going to work like a generator. I mean, it has a generator, and people are going to use it on site for so many things and off road and to do so many cool things. But it was big inside. It was comfortable inside. If I wanted to see over the driver's seat, like even though I was felt like I was thinking in the seats were just perfect for me to still look over his shoulder and see this huge window that I felt like I could view out everywhere. So I don't know, it was super fun, and it was super fast. Like he pushed the pedal down and like took off, and I think they said it was as fast as the Roadster, like the dual or triple motor was up there with its speed or something like that. But yeah, I'm like, this is a pretty badass vehicle.
Yeah, I know. I don't think I've seen like too many photos of anybody standing next to it to try to understand the height of it or the width because it's usually just showcased by itself. It looks amazing. It looks so cool. I mean, I think I seen a photo that, you could have a barbecue like on the back thing of this thing. It's going to be so fascinating. I mean, like I said, whether it's, rockets that drive themselves back, whether it's,
Yeah.
tunnels with self-driving vehicles, whether it's the new fleet of the vehicles that he's doing, Neuralink, SpaceX, this guy is just on it. I don't even know. You know, there's not enough time, it seems like, but he finds all the time to do all the things, which is so great about him. And his legend continues to build. Listen, I know you're
Yeah.
busy. I know you got a lot of things to do. I would love to have you on the show again to try to dive into some other things, maybe definitely after Battery Day. And I know you're a busy young lady out there. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It was a great time.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Follow please K10 on Twitter. Do you have any other handles on any social that you want to give out?
Just K10 Tesla on Instagram, and Kristen Netten or K10 is the name on Twitter. Nothing else out right now, but I'm looking at possibly putting more together just because I love this and I do too much of it as it is. So
I know sometimes I'm like, man, I try to keep up with you. I'm like, I'm not posting enough. She's just grinding, and I have to post my own content and material. But thank you for being a trailblazer in that way, and for me, it makes me wake up and want to put out quality content out there. So thank you so much for coming on.
yeah, thank you. It was great meeting you and being on this podcast. Thank you so much.
For sure, a pleasure. We'll talk soon. Have a good day.
Okay, you
Bye
too.
bye.
Thank you.
Yes.